Hey everyone, it's been quite some time since the last Doom Dog review. I'm sorry about that. Things like a move and injuring my shoulder during that move kept me away from working much on videos, but I recently did finish Dead Space 2 on the channel. It's time for another review. Join me as I take a look at Dead Space 2, played here on the PC version. The first Dead Space proved to be a surprisingly big hit and a critical darling when it was released in 2008. It had a big impact on horror gaming with its unique twist on over-the-shoulder shooting. It was inevitable that it would get a sequel, and it did. It was greenlit almost immediately after the first game released. It was announced to the public in 2010, and with a big marketing campaign that included a tie-in novel, a second animated movie, and some spin-off games as well, and the game would release the following year. Dead Space 2 had massive shoes to fill. The first game was considered a revitalization of the horror genre, receiving widespread praise from fans and critics alike. It has largely become known as one of the greatest horror games ever made. The second game looked to expand on Isaac as a character and to expand on the lore. It sought to make adjustments to the already beloved gameplay based on fan feedback. How did it turn out? Let's take a look at Dead Space 2 and find out. Dead Space 2 opens on a large space station called the Sprawl. Isaac is in a mental hospital due to his experiences in the first game. He is suffering from dementia induced by the marker, and he is having violent visions. He wakes up to find that the station is being overrun with necromorphs, people are dying around him, and the nightmare he left behind on the USG Ishimura is back to haunt him once again. As Dead Space 2 starts, Isaac finds that he is stuck in a mental ward. He is alone, and he is stuck in a straitjacket. He has no weapons on him. He must escape to find himself a weapon in order to fight back against the necromorphs once again. What happened to the Sprawl? Why is it crawling with the undead horrors just like the USG Ishimura was? What will become of Isaac with his deteriorating mental state? These questions and more will be answered in Dead Space 2. The single biggest change that Dead Space 2 makes is that it gives Isaac a voice. He was a silent protagonist in the first game, but he is not here. Going from silent protagonist to one that talks is always a tough transition. Where the first game kind of lets you into the role of Isaac as you play through the game, this one makes him much more of his own character. This is a risky move, but does it pay off? If you are wondering why Isaac was silent in the first game, but now has a voice, it does not explain this. It does not deal with him not talking in the first game at all, really. As for what is here, Gunnar Wright plays Isaac, and he does a very good job with the material. He walks a good balance of Isaac knowing more than anyone else what is going on, and him gradually losing his mind over the course of the game. The writing for his character is pretty good too. It goes a long way to selling you on Isaac being mentally unstable, but being the only one that truly understands what is going on. Beyond this, the game introduced a new cast of characters. Diana Le Guin is the first character that you will interact with, leading Isaac through the hospital at the start of the game. Ellie Langford is one of the primary characters of the game, and one of the main people that Isaac will interact with. Hans Tideman is the director of operations on the Sprawl. He is in charge. Nolan Strauss is a scientist on the Sprawl who is in even worse mental shape than Isaac, but he also seems to have something of a handle on what is going on. One of the main goals of the story of Dead Space 2 is to expand on the established lore in the first game, and it definitely does this. You will learn more about unitology, the marker, the government in charge of Earth, the sprawl itself, and many other things as you play through this game. Keep an eye out for text documents and audio journals that expand on the story, and hear from the people in the sprawl both before the necromorph invasion and during it. There is a lot more lore for you to sink your teeth into. There is one aspect that I did find to get a little annoying, and that's Isaac's girlfriend. She is not that bad when the game first starts, but she keeps popping up over and over again as you get deeper and deeper to the game's campaign. She talks. She talks a lot, and there were times where I was thinking, would you shut the fuck up and let me get back to killing things, please? She can be a little overbearing at times, and I wish they would have cut back a little bit on her frequent interruptions in this game. Outside of this, I don't think the game's story is bad at all. It has some memorable set pieces that you will play through. There is one in a nursery that haunted me since the first time I saw it on the PlayStation 3 back in the day. This game leans harder into the psychological elements than the first game. Isaac's mental state is a major focus of the game's plot, and I love that. I love exploring how something like the Ishimura would affect someone after the fact. It feels Lovecraftian in this regard, and I love that. All in all, I never found the game's story to be as memorable as the first one. I kept bringing this up while we were playing through the game, but there wasn't much that I actually remembered from when I played it, some standout set pieces aside. It is not bad by any stretch of the imagination, though. I like what is here, but it did not stick with me quite as much as the first game. It is good, though. If you are a lore nerd, and I certainly am, you will find plenty here to like. How does it look? The first game holds up very well graphically all these years later, and the same is true of Dead Space 2. This game looks great, especially for a 14-year-old game. Look at it. Can you believe that this game is 14 years old? Of course, I was playing the PC version of the game, and I was doing so with graphics cranked all the way up to 1440p, and it looks and runs great on modern hardware. I did not even have to install any mods or anything to get it running and looking great. There is something to be said about good lighting and good art design. If your game has both, there is a high probability that it will always look pretty good regardless of how old the game is. And that has a lot to do with why this game still looks so good. Much like the first game, the lighting is excellent here, as are things like the fog effects, the shadows, and the particle effects. They all still look good to this day. The art design was very strong in the first game, and it carries over to this game and expands on it. On a technical level, this game does look pretty solid as well. When you get up close to the textures, though, you will see them get fuzzier and more blurry, but that is to be expected. On top of being over a decade old, games at that time were geared more towards consoles and PC. And that is the case here as well. It was designed for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 first, which does place more of a limit on the texture size compared to what PC-only games could do at that time. It's impressive that you really have to look for this, though. As you are running through the halls and shooting necromorphs, it still looks fairly modern. Just like most games, the aspect of the graphics that have aged the most are the character models. The character models in this game do not look bad at all, but things like facial features and animations have come a long way since this game came out, and it still does look dated. You can still tell that this is one of the better looking games from that time period, though. The characters do hold up better than a lot of its contemporaries. All in all, this game still looks quite good. The art design is excellent. The lighting is just as good as the first game. The fog effects and particle effects and shadows all look great as well. It is dated in the ways that you would expect, but if you crank this bad boy up as high as the graphics will go and play at a significantly higher resolution than the consoles of the day and play it, you could hardly notice as you run through corridors and tear apart necromorphs. This game looks great, especially in the moment-to-moment gameplay. I have said this before, and I'm sure it will not be the last time that I say it. Sound design is paramount in horror games. It is the single most important aspect towards setting a mood and atmosphere in these games. The first game set an extremely high bar in this regard. It sounded amazing with an incredibly intense and downright terrifying atmosphere. It was a huge part of why that game is so frightening to so many people. How does the second game handle things? Essentially, it's more of the same. Everything about that game that made it great in this regard is carried over to this. This game sounds excellent. The music and ambient sound effects in the environment work together to create an incredibly intense atmosphere, just like the first game. It knows when to show restraint and to be more quiet, and when to ramp up and be more intense. I would expect nothing less from the sequel to Dead Space, and it delivers in spades. Beyond that, the rest of the sound design is excellent as well. Weapons sound great and powerful, and it lends to them being more fun to use in combat. The necromorphs have all kinds of growls and gross noises. There are all kinds of announcements and advertisements on board the sprawl that you will hear as you explore it, and it all sounds great. The deafening audio for being in a vacuum of space is perhaps the most impressive part. The way it deafens the sound to damn near silence is so impressive and believable. What about the voice acting? Well, it was good in the first game. It is just as good here. We already talked about Isaac Clarke having a voice in this game. He is well played, and the rest of the cast is well played as well. Tanya Clark plays Nicole, despite my wishing she would shut up from time to time. She does well with the materials she is given. There was just too much of it to the point where it started to get a little grating. Sonita Henry plays Ellie. She is probably the best of the new characters in this game. She does great with the role. Kirk Cornelius plays Strauss. He might be the best voice character in this game, walking a thin line between knowing what is going on and insanity. Lester Purry does a great job with Tideman making such an unlikable asshole. The voice cast across the board is quite good, just like it was in the first game. All in all, Dead Space 2 does not lose a single step in its sound design. The first game is amazing in this regard, and this game is just as good as it was. It has a larger cast of characters, and they are all voiced well. The music sets an appropriately creepy and unsettling atmosphere, and the environmental noise is top tier. The weapons sound great, the monsters are gross and creepy. This game is the complete package in terms of sound design. It gets everything right. It looks and sounds great as you would expect, but how does it play? As the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Dead Space 2 plays pretty much exactly like the first game. It is still a third-person shooter. You still aim your weapon carefully at necromorphs to shoot off their limbs and dismember them. You still use power nodes to upgrade your gear and suit. Everything that was there in the first game is very much still here in the second game, as you would expect from a sequel. You still get the plasma cutter, the contact beam, the flamethrower, the line gun, and a number of other returning weapons from the first game. And you get some new ones as well. The javelin gun does exactly what you would expect. It shoots javelins that damage enemies. You get a new grenade launcher as well, called the detonator gun. Having said that, your old favorites from the first game, such as the plasma cutter and the ripper, work just as well as they did in the first game. You still get the stasis ability that lets you slow down objects in the environment or enemies. In fact, there are some enemies where this practically seems necessary. You still have the ability to pick up and throw objects as well with your kinetic ability. The game also lets you wear a variety of different suits for Isaac. It has a lot more suits for you to wear than the first game did, so you can pick your favorite look and try out different ones and see what works best for you. Just like the first game, you get power nodes. You do not get anywhere near enough of them to fully upgrade your weapons and abilities on a single playthrough. You will need to pick and choose what upgrade you install in your weapons, equipment, and suit as you play through the game. Keep an eye out for these in the environment. You can buy them in the store as well, though they are not cheap. Where this game differs from the first game is in things like the speed of the game and the balance between action and horror. This is the faster game than the first Dead Space was. You still need to dismember hordes of enemies just like you did in the first game, but they too tend to come at you faster than they did in the first game. You'll need to do more thinking on your feet and quick shooting. This does not mean that the game is necessarily harder than the first game, but it does mean that the game does lean more into action and away from horror. It still puts a big emphasis on both, but the scale is definitely tipped. This does not make it less fun, if you're thinking that. It definitely doesn't. Tearing apart enemies is just as fun and as satisfying as it was in the first game. I do think it is less scary, though, and that does make it less memorable for me, at least. Like I mentioned earlier, I did find this game less memorable than the first game. In fact, I kept bringing that up over the course of the Let's Play. I think this is why. Overall, though, there is really only one thing in this game that I can knock it for, and it is hard to discuss without talking spoilers. At one point in the game, you have to deal with a necromorph that you cannot kill. You can shoot its limbs off and knock it down, but it regrows them and gets right back up and attacks you again. I found his regeneration to be a real problem that hampered progress to a very annoying degree. Dealing with him does not strike me as fun or intense like they had intended. It just got on my nerves. Aside from that, this game does play great. It feels great. Shooting enemy limbs off is exciting. Upgrading your weapons, armor, and items, and seeing the noticeable difference in power and defense when you do feels great. I would not place its gameplay on the same level as the first game because I think the first game is more frightening, but this is not a massive step down from that. It is not a disappointing sequel in the slightest. Dead Space 2 is a hell of a lot of fun to actually play. What about the replay value? Dead Space 2 does the same thing that the first game did in that regard. You have multiple difficulty settings to play the game on, and you can do a new game plus where your upgraded weapons and armor and equipment carry over to a new round of the game. This makes it fun on repeat playthroughs to try to max out your various weapons and to see how powerful you can become, and it gives you reason enough to go out of your comfort zone and try other weapons as well. It also included multiplayer, but I never played it myself. The servers were shut down in 2023 as well. Still, there's plenty of reason to return to the campaign. All in all, Dead Space 2 is the complete package. It is everything you want out of a good single-player horror game. It has a good, lengthy campaign that will likely take you over 10 hours to beat on a first playthrough, and there is reason to dive back in for a second or third to keep you busy. It sounds great, it looks great, it plays very well, it is a blast. And I do not like it quite as much as the first game, but I highly recommend playing it, if you haven't. If you liked the first game, you are sure to like this one too. Through this review, you have seen gameplay of the PC version of this game, but it did come to the consoles as well. This was a time when they tried to make the console versions look similar to the PC version as possible, so it does look pretty good and holds up pretty well here on the PlayStation 3. The frame rate is obviously lower than you get on the PC though. If you have the Xbox 360 version, it is backwards compatible, and it will run on the Xbox One and the Xbox Series, with it even getting an FPS boost to 60 FPS on the Series X. This is the best console version to play if you prefer to play consoles. If you have a PC built in the last decade, though, you should have no problem running the PC version of this game. Thank you for watching. Thanks for bearing with me as I have gone through things like a move and an injury that I'm still dealing with. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys enjoyed my first Doom Dog review in quite some time. Dead Space 2 was a lot of fun to revisit. What do you think of this game? Drop a comment below and let us know. If you could give this video a like and maybe a share, that would help us out a lot as well. Be sure to subscribe for more, ring the bell, and we'll talk to you later, everybody. Doom Dog out.